Can you hear? All right. Well, let's begin. Welcome. Let's please stand for Pledge of Allegiance, please. An invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Warren?
Yes, sir. Okay, bow your heads for the invocation. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this wonderful community who came together to see your miracle of the eclipse last month. It was truly a spiritual moment. We always want to thank you for the rain, and we thank you for the help. But please bless those in the part of our state that lost their homes, their pets, their livestock, in many cases, some of their lives. We know that you will continue to bless them. Please guide this board as they work daily to make good decisions in the best interest of all members and the property here at HLRH for many years to come. Lead, guide, and direct us this week to follow your will. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Warren. Please be seated. Well, welcome to the quarterly board meeting. And as you can see, we're kind of in a new place, right? Look at the wall, the stage, the floor. There was a lot of work. Adam, thank you for everything that you've done to help to get that involved, and all of the folks that were involved in that. We really appreciate it. As you can see before us here, there's a seat missing right here. Stacy Fink, our vice president, she and her husband are out of state. They are celebrating their wedding anniversary. So I would rather be there than here, to be honest with you. But anyway, Stacy's had some time off, well-deserved, and so she will not be here with us today. So we have our agenda before us, and so we'll move down through this. We'll move to item 3. Mark.
Mr. President, I make a motion to approve the minutes of meeting of the April the 16th, 2024 open meeting and executive session.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I will second that.
I have a second. Any discussion? If not, those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The motion carries. Moving right to item 3. Jeff?
All right. Good evening, everybody. Board. See, Stacy blew it. I was gonna finally say lady and gentleman of the board. Now don't get to say that. So, all right. If we could get to the next slide, please. So we're gonna try something different. I know y'all think I'm very boring, very black and white. So we're going to present the same stuff, just in a little different way. We've got lots of bar graphs and pie charts tonight, so we'll see how it goes. All right, we're going to start here with the revenue. And for all the slides you see tonight, the blue line is our first quarter actual. The orange line is our first quarter budget. And then the gray line is last year's first quarter actual. Does that make sense to everybody? All right. So here on revenue, initiation fees, they're always going to be exactly on budget unless there was been a horrendous issue. I can tell you as far as total initiation fees so far for this year, we are above budget, and that's a good thing because we already have April's numbers, and they were not very good for initiation fees. In the middle here, we have golf revenue. So 97,101 is our revenue for this first quarter. We're a little bit above budget of the 95.9. We're a little bit below last year's first quarter, and that's really all weather. We had a horrific January this year. I think we were closed 13 days out of the 31 in January. So that's pretty much where you see that. Next slide, please. All right, moving on to dues here on the left side. You can see it's pretty much status quo. We're pretty much right on budget, just a hair above where we were last year. That's from the result from the small increase we had this year. Total revenue over there on the right, we're almost matching last year's identically. Now, one thing to remember about this is we had some kind of bogus revenue we talked about at the last meeting. Not bogus, but billed but unrealized. I guess that's the best way to put it. income from collection fees last year. So even though we're about the same as we were last year's was inflated by about $15,000. So that means we're doing really well on revenue so far for this year. All right, moving on to expenses. This first slide here is security. And you see that we are a little bit above budget for the first quarter. That is mostly because we're finally fully staffed. For most of the first quarter, we were fully staffed. We had a few times here and there where we were a little bit below. Most of the overage that we have is because we got rid of a bunch of PTO this first quarter. I did a PTO report earlier, and it was over 500 hours of PTO. So that's one of the good things about finally getting fully staffed is we have the ability to allow some of our staff that have had large amounts of PTO build up to finally get take time off. Over here to the right is security expenses. You can see we're well below budget, and the bulk of that, two different things. We had budgeted replacing the gate servers. We budgeted $17,000 for that. We have not finished that project yet, so that's part of the discrepancy there. We also needed to change out some AED batteries, and that has not taken place just yet. Good news is, as you can see, that we're quite a bit below last year's first quarter expenses for security. All right, moving on to maintenance. Payroll here on the left, again, you can tell by how far below budget we are. We're a couple people short on the maintenance department right now. I mean, we haven't even spent what we spent last year, and that's with a increase for wages. So, looking for people, spread the word. We need help. Over here on the right for expenses, you can see that we're way below budget, and the bulk of that, some landscaping, tool purchases, and tree removal. The landscaping and tool purchases were planned. We just haven't got to them yet. Our maintenance crew has been extremely busy. You can see this building. They did this building. They've had tons of projects going one right after the other, so just haven't got to everything yet. You can see that we're even behind last year's actual expenses. All right, moving on to golf maintenance. Payroll on the left. Below budget, we're a person short still. The difference from last year is mostly just the increase in wages. On the right-hand side, we have the expenses. Again, we're way below budget, about $29,000. And most of that is fertilizer, $10,000 below budget on fertilizer so far this year, and $5,000 below budget on sod. Now, we are quite a bit more, almost $10,000 more than last year, but y'all have seen up front, we replaced that fountain finally. That came in the month of March. That was $14,000 in order to get that new fountain put in. So that's the reason we've spent quite a bit more than last year on golf maintenance. Moving on to Pro Shop, pretty status quo, hardly anything different. Expenses on the right-hand side, we're a little below budget. We had planned to do some work on the AC system at the Pro Shop, just haven't got a chance to get that done yet, so that's the reason we're below budget there. Moving on to recreation. So obviously we don't have any payroll in recreation in the first quarter, so all we have to deal with are expenses in recreation. Under budget again, $5,000 that we're under budget is from buildings, and $4,000 is under budget for our lake maintenance. It's almost identical to what we spent in the first quarter last year. Not a whole lot of anomalies there. Restaurant's looking good this year. We are $2,000 below budget, and that's building repairs over there. We just didn't incur anything. We have had a couple things come in the month of April, so we'll see that in the second quarter. But we're even quite a bit less than what we did last year in the restaurant. So everything's the fact that, we redid the contract with them, and they're paying a portion of the utilities now. So that helps tremendously as well. Moving on to admin. Quite a bit below budget on wages. For most of the first quarter, we had our director of ops has been vacant, and we also had for a little bit, we've had also a vacancy in the HR admin director position. So we're looking to fill those very quickly, even below what we spent last year. Over on the right-hand side under expenses, so we're below budget mostly because of what we had planned to spend on our collection agent, and even well below budget or below what we actually spent last year first quarter. So Adam could tell you more about this later on, but we were not pleased with what was taking place with the law firm that was doing our collecting. And so long story short, we have switched and gone to a new law firm for our collection of accounts. We're kind of in a transition mode right now, so we're not spending any money. We're just having them assess where we are right now, what our best plan is going forward. So that's the reason we haven't really spent any money so far this first quarter on our collection agency. That will change going forward, though. Moving on to human resources, the difference in the budget to actual is mostly our health plan, and that's also the difference between last year and this year. So our health plan did go up from last year to this year, but it's less than what we had budgeted for. So doing well there. Expenses are inconsequential. All right, moving on to multi-department. Expenses over here on the left-hand side, we're a hair over budget. Most of it is computer support. And I do want to take a quick minute to talk about this real fast. We knew that QuickBooks, so every 3 years, QuickBooks will basically no longer support desktop versions of their accounting software. So we were planning on having to purchase, this was the coming up on 4 years now. So we were planning on having to purchase the new desktop procedure. Well, Intuit has decided they either want you to go to the online version, which is horrific. It is a nightmare. We'll never use it. And their enterprise version. The enterprise version is more than what we really need, but we didn't have a choice. So we ended up spending more money to purchase that this year than what we were planning on. Now, the good news is the our payroll subscription is included in the enterprise package. So where we had the desktop version, we were paying extra for the payroll subscription. Now that's all included. So by the end of so we're over budget right now. By the end of the year, we'll actually come in under budget because of this move. So it's a good move for us. Last year we were, or excuse me, the year before we were with a third-party payroll service and did not like it. So we're back to doing payroll in-house, and it's a much better situation for all involved. Depreciation on the right-hand side, we're right on budget for what we budgeted. You can see some of the new equipment that we purchased from last year to this year has caused the overall depreciation to go up about $8,000 there. Real quick on leases, we're right on budget with leases. We've spent more than what we spent actually last year, and I don't know if you wouldn't remember this. Our big golf course equipment package was up for renewal last year. We couldn't get the equipment. They couldn't get the equipment to us to replace it. So basically, we got a couple of months free last year until they got the new equipment to us. So that's really the only difference between last year's actual to this year's actual. All right, so long story short is we are doing really well through the first quarter. We're about $80-something thousand to the good when we had budgeted to be about 100 to the negative. So we're almost $200,000 better than budget so far this year. Next slide. So this I just want to show you real quick. So this is the breakdown of our expenses for the first quarter, and this basically follows our normal history. So the big right-hand wedge over there that's 26%, that is security. That's always what we're going to spend the most on out here, and I think everybody is in agreement with that. The next largest amount is over here on the left-hand side, the 18%. That is, I forget, admin, sorry. Sheesh, I think I'd have this memorized. So that's the second most, and then the next one, the gray down there at the bottom right, 15%, that is golf maintenance. So These really hardly ever vary. So if you ever want to know what your money's going to, that's a great way to look at it and see how much of your dollar, each of your dollars goes to the different areas. And this is fairly accurate now. You know, last year we went back and reallocated everything to the actual departments. We used to have a ton of stuff that was lumped under admin. So there's still a few things here and there that we could parcel out. But for the most part, this is pretty accurate for each department on what we spend, because this has your liability insurance, property insurance, all that going to each of the departments. I did not do a slide for our board restricted funds, and the reason why, we've only completed one project in the first quarter. Again, we've got our plate very full. The one thing that we did finish in the first quarter that was scheduled was the purchase of the mower for the maintenance department. That did come in about $1,500 below budget. The F-350 truck we did purchase, but we did not get the title and registration paid until in April. I can tell you that that final number is going to come in under budget, about $1,000 under budget. Everything else was still in progress. This building here, the gate generators, and the Holly Hall generator. So we're still working on those projects, so there wasn't a whole lot to report there. Moving on to the aging report. So I compared January to April, so we got a good 30-day or a 3-month span here. Good news is the 30-day did go down slightly. The 60-day went up a decent amount. The 90-day, it looks like it went down, okay? So, but remember, on top, that's the dollar figures, total dollar figures. Down below is the number of accounts associated with that. So if you go down to the 90 days, we actually went down 14 accounts, but the very last line, in collections, increased 14 accounts. So those 14 accounts that transitioned did go the good direction. They went to the next step direction, unfortunately. So it's a constant battle that we wage every day. We fight hard for your money. Sometimes we don't win those battles all the time, though. So we're constantly reviewing. Again, Adam could have some more. He actually said he had a meeting today with our new collection agent, and we've got some good information going forward as far as that goes. All right, I know that was kind of in a rush, in a hurry. First quarter, it's not a whole lot going on. I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody might have regarding financial reports. What do you think of the bars and graphs and everything? Is that more palatable? It's flashier, isn't it? I'm a flashy guy. What can I say? All right, no questions? All right, thank you very much. Appreciate your attention.
All right. Good evening, everyone. It is good to see you. All right. So finishing up our 3-month recap here at the resort sale. Can we turn that down maybe just a little bit? Speaking of flashy, my voice, right? Yeah. Sorry. So the resort sale. So I know everybody is kind of on pins and needles, and quite honestly, I am too, about what Erico is going to do, but I just want to kind of recap some of those things. So on the 22nd of April, Erico did officially close on the resort as we formerly have known it as Holiday Inn Club Vacations Resort. I met with him today, so he is on site, will be on site all week. And initial indications were, based on our initial conversations, was that he wasn't going to do anything until 2025. During our conversation today, I said, okay, so what is the plan? Has it changed? And he said, actually it has. Renovations have already begun. So his approach is they're going to renovate one cabin or condo at a time in almost this model home type scenario. So his intent is to redo some of them, show them, give folks an option, but then start selling them, either as is or with the upgraded options. And I said, well, when do you plan to do that? And quite honestly, at this point, he is not dedicating a whole lot of his staff or crew over there, so I think he's gingerly going to go into this. But he has met with contractors and is fully underway on that. Asked him who his target audience was, which is, I think, important to all of us. And he said snowbirds. He is targeting the snowbirds who, you know, summer up north where it's a little bit cooler, and then they winter down south. He seemed to think that that would be a viable market for this area, but reinforced several times that he intends to do something nice over there. He wants to maintain it. He is, I think, falling in love a little bit with Holly Lake, and so I reinforced that your love cannot be greater than the love of those who currently reside here, so let's keep this thing on track and going that way. Ask him about the amenities, which I think is a big question for everybody. Is there an intent for him or his folks over there to utilize your amenities? If you remember back to the LOI, we agreed on that if there was going to be a use for amenities, it would be a like charge to what you all pay. So the $175 minus the $15.24 for your trash, we wouldn't do trash services for them, so it'd be $159.76 times 130 units. And he said, quite honestly, I don't know at this point. I don't know what my customers are going to want. I don't know if there's interest in that. If they're only here for, 3 or 4 months of the year, they may not be inclined to pay the $159.76 12 months of the year. So I think that is still very much undetermined. Ask him about his long term, and he said ultimately it will probably get turned over to a management company. He intends to be here for the first 2 to 3 months, very actively involved in that. And then we'll turn it over to his crews, but once it reaches that carrying capacity and is satisfying basically the carrying costs, at that point he will probably look to turn that over to the management company. And then the last big discussion we had was regarding the current upkeep. I'm sure everybody has noticed the grass is tall, the limbs are down, things of that nature. So he has one permanent person on staff right now. After our discussion, he was meeting with 2 others. So he intends to pull on at least a partial, if not full maintenance staff. And I expressed our concern that East Texas was going to reclaim that place pretty quick. So he needed to get that maintained, and he seemed very amicable to doing that. So that is Eric Ho. I don't know a whole lot else about him. I know that there are 1,000 different rumors out there and this and that and all the others, but I can tell you the conversations that we have, he's a sharp guy, he's a business-oriented guy, and I don't think he made the type of investment he made over there with the intent of not making money on it. And to make money, he needs to do something nice. So that was reassuring. I left that meeting with some unanswered questions, but at least in a positive tone for the future. So more to follow on that as they come. So, all right, well, that wraps up our past 3-month focus. So if we can go to the next slide for the current focus. And we'll talk just a little bit about the first and second quarter board restricted projects. So that is, as Jeff had mentioned, still a current focus for us. The facility renovations, I think maintenance did a fantastic job on this, either through the contracting of individuals or some of the things that we were able to do ourselves. So we were complete with that, complete with the deck mower. Remind you back to last year, we canceled our contract mowing service in favor of purchasing another mower. The cost will be about the same over the course of this year, but then we'll realize savings in the future to come. And the F-350 truck was purchased. So that is a done deal. The outstanding things for the first and second quarter, we have the Holly Hall generator. So our intent was to put a 125 kilowatt generator to power this building fully. It could serve as an emergency evacuation type scenario. You lose your power, you lose your heat, you lose cooling, you lose whatever. We wanted folks to have a safe place to come that had a fully operational kitchen, that had restrooms to use, that had the ability to get you out of the heat or out of the cold, or just out of the rain in some cases. But that price has went up. So as opposed to just asking for more money, we decided to continue the search, which we are currently doing. Had hoped to have it done now, but if we can fall within budget and wait a few months, I would rather do that than ask for more money and do it now. So that is the approach we're taking with that. The same is also true for the gate generators. They went up, installation went up, everything has went up, availability has went up. So again, we are continuing to trying to find the best deal that we can. And the idea behind the gate generators, we already have one on the east side, but sections 3, 6, and the west side here, anytime we lose power, throws the gate arm up, kind of defeats the purpose of us having security and things of that nature. And typically when that happens, there are a lot of other things that security needs to handle, and standing there at that gate, then we're choosing between protect the gate or help members, and we're always going to help members first. So we wanted to take some of that off to be able to do that. So hopefully we'll get those things tackled here pretty quick. The road paving, if you remember, we voted to increase that to $425,000. We have that on schedule now for June. So the exact date is undetermined at this point, but the road paving, anticipating June, we'd like to have it done before 4th of July, and that will be starting where we left off on Holly Trail East and going all the way up to where we started the seal coating last year, kind of in the downward slope of that emergency spillway. We're going to do inlet to inlet on Greenbrier, so where you pass the water inlet to inlet, and then we will do all of Deer Path back here in section 2. And then we will do seal coating. So the seal coating is going to start here at the bridge and go all the way up to Rolling Ridge. It's about 1.3 miles. And as I put in my email last week, that's going to be an inconvenience for everybody. We've met and are trying to find the least impactful ways to you all, and we feel like time is a very important consideration within that. So we might have to pay a little bit extra money for the additive, but I think that's the right decision. There is still a little bit of room in the budget, and what we're going to try to do is then go from the bridge down to 2869, so we can hopefully get the entirety of this area seal coated all the way up to Rolling Ridge, which will significantly extend the life of our pavement. And pavement is expensive, so we want to take every opportunity we can to do that. And then finally, under admin and recreation, this was a new ad. So we all know that the property closing, the common area property closing, there's legal fees, there's titling costs and things of that nature, which we had already spoken about. So we had asked the board to consider increasing or putting a new line item in for the amount of $60,000 to cover those when we get to that point. So that was voted on at the April 16th meeting. So we wanted to make sure that that was reflective here. Obviously, we haven't spent that yet because we are not at that point, and don't anticipate probably getting to that point in second quarter. It'll most likely be third quarter. All right, go to the next slide, please. Speaking of the common property transfer. So the PSA, the Purchase and Sale Agreement, or what we previously called the contract, has been drafted by our legal counsel. It has been sent to Silverleaf's legal counsel, and now it's like the battle of legal counsels, arguing over this and that. But again, to make sure that what was in the LOI is reflective in the contract or the PSA. In its current version, there are some discrepancies in there. So we're working through those things with our legal counsel and then with Silverleaf to make sure that it is what we said it was going to be. There's also a parcel discrepancy. So we sent out Exhibit A, and that included all of the parcels that would be transferred over. Since the closing of the resort, there is a parcel over there. It is 16182. I don't expect anybody to know that, but 16182, and it includes part of the emergency spillway downside. So if you're on Holly Trail East traveling and you've got the gravel parking lot where a lot of folks fish or launch kayaks or whatever, which is the emergency spillway, on the opposite side of that you'll see the tennis courts, and there's an 8.8 acre parcel that was transferred over to Eric Ho. So we're working through that as well. All that to say, we haven't stalled on this. We are still very much working on it. The committee is still very much working on it, but we're not to that point. So if we can't get some of these little things, like the 8.8, it may require a revote. I don't want that to be discouraging to anyone, but it's the right thing to do. I would rather do it right than not. So we will continue to work hard on that and make sure that we get you the very best project in product, but we'll be transparent along the way as well. So fitness center cardio equipment, in all honesty, I had intended to have this done well before now, and have just run out of time. I don't know what it is about this year, but it seems like we are all just kind of grasping at straws to get everything done. So we're a bit behind on that, and that may be a little bit of a blessing. That falls within our recreation, and as we're going to talk some of the treatments for the lake, that may be beneficial for us. So we've saved some money because we didn't get that done, but that may free up a little bit of money to help us with some of the lake projects as well. One key change on this, I had originally told everybody that we could do 4 treadmills. We could do the 2 ellipticals, the 1 stationary bike, 1 rowing machine, and a stair climber. Went up and remeasured it again, and we can get all of that in there, but boy, it's going to be tight. So erring on the side of caution, we're going to reduce the number of treadmills to 3. So we'll have 3 treadmills, the 2 ellipticals, 1 stationary bike, a rowing machine, and a stair stepper. Again, this will be leased equipment for the period of 3 years, and then at the expiration of that lease, we will own it, so then we can either keep it or we can trade it in to upgrade it, keeping it nice and fresh for everybody. And those machines get a lot of use up there. So, okay, next slide, please. So the Lake Greenbrier vegetation, boy, that is tough to see. Hopefully everybody was able to see the email that was sent out. I've gotten a few emails on it. Why did you choose these areas? That area doesn't include mine. Things of that nature, and it was not based on who lives where. I just want to be very upfront about that. But it was based on a no-kidding boat ride. Let's get in the boat. Let's drive around. Let's find the largest concentrations. And we're going to attack those first. We also have to be budget conscious on this. So in order to make the budget work, as Jeff has mentioned, we try very hard to make your dollar go as far as we can. And I'm not of the mind of if we need something, let's just write another check for it and we'll figure it out later. No, we're going to figure out where we're going to cut that from, and then we're going to spend the money if we need to. So this was very much a budget decision as well. So we've nixed any bass stocking this year. We do have a credit, so we have to utilize that credit, and we're going to do that with tilapia. We'll be putting about 100 pounds of tilapia here in Holly Lake, and the remainder, some 436 pounds, I think, in Lake Greenbrier. But the benefits that they provide, not only for the fish, but just the habitat in general, it's well worth it. It's a good investment for us, and we have to use that money anyway. It's already been allocated to our contractor. So the remainder of the money that would have went to bass, we're going to reallocate towards spraying. So we've contracted with Loco, I don't know how to pronounce it, to be honest with you, Lochow. We've contracted with them to come out. They utilize an airboat, and they're going to come through and they're going to spray these areas. As I mentioned in the email, it's not a permanent treatment, but this is going to be a good opportunity for us to fully evaluate, one, the effectiveness, the duration of the treatment, and then see what the rest of it does. We fully recognize that there is some more out there, and our intent is not or should never be to fully eliminate all vegetation from the lake. That would be a mistake on our part. But we want to balance it. It's a multi-use lake, and we have to find that critical balance in there. So they will be coming out. We don't know exactly when, but they did extend the offer. If your area is not in one of these areas, they essentially offered a discounted rate to come out and spray that area for you. So not a mandatory thing. It's not us trying to push liability onto you, but it truly is, before we spend a whole bunch of money, let's fully evaluate this and see what it's going to do for us. All right, I think that's that. All right, let's go to the future. Welcome to the future. So third quarter, as it was voted on in the budget meeting in December of 2023, the board goes and they vote all board restricted funds. They reaffirm or reassure that vote each quarter. But I'd like to recommend a change and ask the board for a change for dam repairs. We put this in there with the anticipation, again, this is not for the repair of the dam. Rather, this is once TCEQ basically determines what we can do that will still fall within compliance, then that's the engineering study that would be required to do that. So the repair will be much more substantial than that, but that is essentially the engineering fee. Quite honestly, we're not going to get there this year. The battle with TCEQ and with our engineers and all of that continues. So as opposed to allocating that money with full knowledge that spending it is very, very unlikely, I'd like to ask the board to remove that prior to voting. We've also got on there $48,000 for the 60 horsepower tractor. That is to replace one of our aging tractors in golf maintenance. We've got the $12,000 for the common area enhancement. Again, this was a lot of those common areas that were going to get transferred over. They're labeled as parks on your plats. And at this point, they're just overgrown masses of dense, thick timber. So the thought was, let's utilize those, let's increase access for residents. So that was set aside for that. The kayak launch is a carryover from last year. Section 3 rec improvement, a partial carryover from last year at $20,000. And then a patrol vehicle replacing, I believe it's 19. Vehicle 19 from our security fleet. We've elected to get away from the full-size F-150s. We're going to go to a smaller, more mid-size, small-size pickup. It still has a bed that can afford us the opportunity to go and pick up animals and things of that nature, but we don't need an F-150. So we're going to try and save some money, not only on the purchase, but on gas as well. So that would make the new revised total, if the board is willing to accept the minus 50, of $125,000 for expenditure within third quarter. All right, slide please. Next couple big things that we have coming up, the draft 2025 budget. We started months ago. Different requests and things like that. We consolidate all of those, but we in earnest start as a staff really July 1st. So that's the opportunity. We get in a room, and I kind of affectionately refer to it. I don't know if I've ever told Jeff and Jerry this, but it's kind of the slash and burn. It's let's give me your ideas, and we're going to slash and burn some of them out, and we'll take the ones that still have some merit, and then we're going to flush those out a little bit more. Get some solid numbers, get some pros and cons, do all those different things. That's all that supplemental information on the 18th. Then we go to a final prioritization. There's a lot of needs out there. There's a lot of wants. There's a lot of wishes. But at the end of the day, we really need to boil it down to the needs. And our metric for that is, how does this best serve the residents? Not, does it make our job easier? Does it make our job more efficient so we can do more? And there's merit to that. But we really and truly do pore over this for the period of months. We'll have a rough budget draft due by the 15th, and then we'll final review and revise on the 30th for presentation for the first time, really that the board sees it. They provide input and rudder steers and things of that nature, things that are important to them along the way. But the first time that they'll get to see that, no kidding, final first draft of that budget will be the 12th of September. And then we'll go back and forth with revisions as they see fit until finally we present it in November of this year. And then finally, our financial audit takes an incredible amount of time, namely from Jeff and Maria. The finance committee is involved, but it's a yearly occurrence. Folks have said, well, an audit is expensive. Why do we do it yearly? I think that would give you reassurance. It is expensive, but it gives us reassurance that everything is where it should be. Should give you reassurance that we are following GAP and doing all the things that are required and recommended, but it does require a lot of staff time. Months of staff time of consolidating and getting all of these documents in line for Henry and Peters, our auditing firm, to come out. Typically it's 1 day, sometimes it's 2 days, but they'll come out and do all on-site testing, and then they'll go back and generate a substantial and robust audit report. So those are our big things coming up, and I believe that is all I had.
Thank you, Adam. Moving to item 7, Mark.
President, I make a motion, we approve board restricted funds for the third quarter, deleting the $50,000 for dam repairs for a total of $125,000.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that, Mr. President.
I have a second. Any discussion? If not, those approved say aye. Aye. Those say nay. The motion carries. Item number 8, Mark.
Mr. President, I want to talk about the ARA revisions. The ARA manual, rules and regulations, standards, whatever they were called, are now called the policy and standards. They were gone through word by word. I'd like to thank the ARA. I'd like to thank Stacy Finks. It wasn't cut and paste. Everything was gone through, went through, discussed. There's a lot of changes. Make sure, if you come down here and apply for a permit, that you read this document and you have your stuff ready. It's only as good as the people that comply and how much it's enforced. There is a lot of feedback. We got 6 comments. 2 of them were data boys. 4 of them were questions. We had one gentleman that lost what day of the week it was and was a little late. He had some good suggestions. It was after the cutoff. Please read this document if you're going to do some work. Mr. President, I make a motion that we approve the ARA document dated May the 7th, 2024, as presented.
Have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a second. Any discussion? If not, those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The motion carries. Lastly, item number 9.
I think my
I'd like to make a motion to approve financial policies and procedures as posted.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that, Mr. President.
I have a second. Any discussion? If not, those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The motion carries. That concludes the items that we have here, and so we're down to item 10. So that is property owners' questions, comments. So the floor is open. If you would, please state your name and your section, and the floor is open.
You knew this was coming. Greg Demko, Section 4. Question, you just completed a survey. Are you planning another one?
Not at this time.
My question is then, the last survey that you just put out with the 19 questions basically highlighted understanding communication. 10 of the questions were specific to those questions. They were kind of general in nature, okay? The deadline to sign up was on the 10th, coming up this Friday. Why, if this was in an effort to communicate, not turned in by the 6th, yesterday, where we could have had the results today? at this meeting. Now we got to wait 2 months, not necessarily for the results, but for comments. Okay? Last December, I turned in a questionnaire with 13 ideas for a survey that you all got. 13 questions. 2 of them are mine. The other 11 were from residents. They were specific questions. The survey that you just did, what have you got, like 150 results to date? General questions. When you ask specific questions, the last survey we did, it's been 10 years now, our results were 549 people returned surveys. This survey was done electronically, correct?
It was?
With those kind of numbers, obviously there's a problem with communication. We're not reaching people. Now, how do we do that? Well, I've been harping on this now for, well, you guys know, for a long time. The only thing that everybody gets is a bill once a month. And you've got the newsletter going now, which is good. Why in that newsletter it was advertised about the survey, correct? It was coming out. Why, if communication is a big thing, and you guys are representing 100% of the population out here, obviously 100% of the population is not hooked up electronically. Why wasn't there paper copies of this made? I got them. I made it. It could have been in that newsletter, and it could have been picked up for those people that didn't have the opportunity to do this electronically, which is why we got 549 returns available. Could have been at Whiskey's, could have been here, could have been the Pro Shop, could have been anywhere. Made of communication. We keep talking about it. These 13 questions, I would beg the board to do another survey and get more specific on questions. Things like, I'm going to mention a few of them so people understand what I'm talking about. Some people were talking about, well, I work. I'd like to take my dog to the dog park. They're in the house all day. Why can't we get a parking light at the dog park? Simple thing, not that expensive. Defibrillators, I talked to Adam about this. Where are they? We had an incident not long ago on the golf course. The defibrillator was at 50%. Anyway, we've got to monitor those things. Advertise where they're at. I know the fire department just gave us 4 at the beginning of the year. I've been after a bocce court out here. 68 people said at the last survey they'd like to see a bocce court. People donated bocce. Parking lot up at the golf course was torn up a little bit, removed some of the garden area, and it was going to be, whether it was going to be repaved or definitely was going to be striped. When was that going to be done? Simple question. And I know this is going to be on one of your returns because Gail mentioned it to me, and I didn't prompt her for it, covering the West Side pool. Year-round swimming. Super thing. And Eric Ho may be interested in supporting that too. But we have people that want to swim, want to get in shape, darn sure exercise. You've got the aerobic classes going on there, and I imagine they used to be going on in the morning and at night. So you got a lot of people involved with that. And the big thing that's never talked about is how many people here have new knees, hips, whatever. And the doctor, the last thing they say is you need to be water therapy. And another one thing that our computer system a couple years ago was supposed to provide a directory. Got rid of the paper directory. Had sponsors. Donated thousands of dollars to the fire department. How many people would like to see a paper directory out here. I mean, people can't get on the directory on this website. That was a perfect questions that could have been asked that were not. 13 of them, 0. Please, I'm begging to get out there and give the people the opportunity to react to specific questions. It works, believe me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any others?
Dave Evans, Section 4, good evening.
Hi, Dave.
Hi. I would like to submit for the record that the bleachers recently constructed between Holly House and the new pickleball courts were funded by the HLR Pickleball Association. We paid for it, we installed it, no cost to the association, to the ranch. We'd like to install additional features per the plan that was submitted in accordance with that plan when approved by management, and it would address additional safety concerns. So, like I say, we funded it. We want to pay for additional features for the benefit of the ranch residents, for the ranch, not just for us. It's not for the 160 members that we have. So we'd like to pay for more. And secondly, my wife asked, she's a gardener, she'd asked about a garden parcel for a community garden. Did that come up? That was suggested one time, and she just asked if that was still pending.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. First of all, thank you for your comments, and thank you for funding the bleachers. We appreciate it very much. You want to address the garden?
Yes. The community garden, yes, David, is still a real thing. We purchased all of the supplies to go around it. The intent is to put a 6-foot fence. We'll see just how savvy those deer are. We may have to we may have to get it a little bit higher, but we're going to start with a 6-foot fence. Maintenance, I believe, started on it this week, if not next week, but the intent is to get that rolling as quickly as we can. I know we're behind the power curve on that a little bit, and then we'll draft up something just so people can claim the spot. I don't want people fighting over tomatoes. So it'll be free of charge, but come up and do the things that you want to, and we've got water out there as well, so looking forward to it.
Michelle?
Michelle Tolucci, Section 8. I just wanted some updates on 2 issues. I know you're probably not surprised, but one of them is grandfathered lots. If you can give us an update on where you are in your review and what your plans are. And the other is initiation fees for property owners that are planning to sell a home and need to buy another one here.
Okay. The grandfather lots, we're still working with our legal counsel on determining what the best approach for that is. And so we're waiting on information from them. And so until we get that, we won't have a plan to go forward with that until that happens. The initiation fees is part of what was passed. There will be the fees somewhere around May 21st will go into effect. The fact that you get 90 days from when you sell a house to close on another house within the Holly Lake Ranch before you'd have to pay initiation fees again. So, any other questions? Yes, sir.
My name is Dennis Dossie, Section 4. In our LOI, or whatever it's currently called today, is the possibility, I know Mr. Ho has the option to either opt in or opt out in terms of the use of the common properties. Is it an all or nothing deal? Because he's selling to the snowbirds. It's perfectly logical to me. Some of them are going to want to play golf and fish, and some of them aren't. And it just seems to me that's an absolute that he's going to want to say, well, I've got 8 that want to, and I've got 15 that don't. Does our LOI spell that out? Is it a he's either in or out
It does not specifically spell that out, but I think we certainly think it's an in or it's an out. And I think there's,
That's what I've always thought.
yeah, and I think there's still a lot of negotiations with that. You know, if they're out, how do we control access? You know, this is step one of probably 15 different steps in revising and reviewing and doing all this stuff. But we, to be quite honest, decide from the, do you intend to use the amenities or not? And it's an, I don't know. We haven't really fully addressed and discussed that because we're trying to get to this. Well, that's good. We're trying to get the PSA and all that stuff done and then better understand what he's doing, so.
All right.
Thank you. Any other questions? Hello, Jan.
Jan Brannon, Section 4. I have a concern and a request. The concern is behind our houses over there on Oxbow Cove, the golf course slants right down toward our houses, and some of them have flooded in the past. They put a drainage ditch in there, I don't know when, a few years ago, but the golf course mows and they shove everything in the drainage ditch, and limbs have fallen and they're shoved in the drainage ditch, and consequently, there is no drainage in the drainage ditch. So could we get maintenance over there and get that drainage ditch cleaned out behind our houses? That's my concern.
We will come over and look at it. Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you. I've talked to the golf course people last year, or year before last, I can't remember, but nothing happened, so I'm bringing it up here. My next one is an easy request, I think. Is there any way the pool could, at the end of the day, the last hour, somehow, I don't know what time it closes, but when it's set to close, is there any way we can have an adult swim for the last hour of the day? Just adults only, no screaming children, no splashing in our faces. We may be able to just, have an adult, it would be nice. I know a lot of people don't go to the pool because there's a lot of screaming kids running around, and we're old and we are annoyed by that. And I think it would be great if we wouldn't need a lifeguard because we're old and we know whether we know how to swim or not. So if you could think about that, we would really appreciate having a quiet hour of pool usage. That's it.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Randy Brock from Section 2. My question is to Mark and the Architectural Committee. Were there any changes to the architectural guidelines? Is there an exception report? Any changes that were made to that? Because I've seen a lot of people on Facebook post about fencing and this and that and the other thing. Have there been any changes as part of that process?
You really need to go.
Can you highlight any changes, any big changes?
No metal buildings anymore.
Ah, that's a big one.
There's a red line that we
Yep.
posted on the website, it's still there, it shows where it started and where it is today.
Yeah, you go on.
It's extensive, you need to read it if you plan on building. And that's up to your contractors too.
Yeah.
Hi, Carolyn Quick in Section 8. And I've kind of got a bone to pick with you guys because I sent 2 emails one of them was sent on March the 1st, one on March the 14th. And I addressed it to the board, to the entire board. Both emails were in reference to the $5,000 initiation fee. And with both emails, I got back, please give us some time to review, discuss, respond to your email. No one ever responded to my email.
I didn't get
Well,
an email.
Somebody got it because I got a response that said, y'all got the email. Thank you for contacting the board of directors. This is what it says. Your communication is very important to us. Please give us some time. And so I just gave up. So here I am. I want to know what's the communication like that I didn't get anything back from y'all.
That's my fault.
Okay. All right.
It is. So we established the Holly Lake, or HLRA_BOD at Holly Lake Info. That goes to a repository. The board doesn't get to see that repository because it forwards it to a mailing list. That mailing list then distributes it out to the board of directors. Are you a Google user or a Gmail user by chance?
No, I use Yahoo.
Yahoo, okay. So that was another one we were having issues with. So they changed some of their backside programming, and so it may not have been compatible with our internal server, and so it was rejecting those things. The transfer handshake between Holly Lake Info and the BOD_ML mailing list never occurred. We didn't find out about it, contacted our IT folks. We've since fixed it, done away with the mailing list, and now it's distributed directly from the master account.
Okay, so in the
I'm
future,
sorry.
it'll work if I wanted to
will.
send it? Well, I really appreciate that the board did decide to extend that to 90 days. I wish they would extend it further, because sometimes you don't find a house within 90 days that you want to buy after you sell your house. So I wonder why they chose only 90 days of extension. But I appreciate that there is more than just the day you sell your house. So that's my question now, is why is it only 90 days? Okay.
It's various, excuse me, a couple of various concerns about that, and we discussed it at length, okay? And a lot of places when you sell and you buy another house, if you have to, in that particular subdivision or whatever, you have to pay your fees. So we looked at it, we wanted to try to make an area or not, a decision based upon what we thought was fair, okay? Both to the association and to the homeowners, and we decided 90 days.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, if not, I would entertain a motion to dismiss. So moved. I have a motion, do I have a second? Second. All right, okay, those in favor say aye. Aye. We are dismissed, thank you.